Welcome back everybody to this Ferrari challenge. I am Fuzzyface and we are now on season 3. We're rolling on with things here. We're getting into season 3. We've got 4 parts to this episode that we're going to try and get through today. We're going to be designing the new chassis of the SF18. We're going to be revealing the new car with the new livery, the new SF18 look for the 2018 season. We're going to be moving on to the driver market. We're going to go through what all of the teams have done, whether they've thrown up any weird combinations, and then we're going to be doing pre-season testing, which at that point we're going to be able to see what sort of Mick Schumacher has been promoted to #1 driver. It won't say that in his contract just yet because it won't renegotiate with us until Sergio Perez is currently the reserve driver. What I have decided to do, since it is getting towards the 2017 season, and I will want to be starting a 2017 season when the 2017 mod comes out, and the aim of this series is to go with Mick Schumacher as the #1 driver. Since time's rolling along, since we've achieved pretty much everything we can with Sebastian Vettel, and since he's such a good driver, he's rated 5 stars, he's actually rated the best driver in the game now. What we're going to do is we're going to be bringing Charles Leclerc in. He's going to get the #2 seat. He's going to be equal status with Mick Schumacher. So we're going to even up the cars, so they both have a car that's pretty comparable to each other. Obviously one would have a better engine, one would have a better gearbox, but then it's going to be a little bit tighter between our drivers over who's going to win actually in Ferrari. Can't confidently say that we would win the Drivers' Championship, as there always is a possibility that Vettel could end up at Mercedes, which would be quite a challenge for us at that point. So we're going to release Vettel and Perez into the driver market. Hopefully that will mean that they will sign with a pretty decent team, someone that's going to be able to get the best out of them. There is the possibility with this game that Vettel could end up in GP2 or Perez could end up in GP2. That will be not too good, but then we'll be able to see what they can do in GP2. Obviously Jenson Button dropped down to GP2 last season with the Art Grand Prix car. He did pretty poorly. The Art car performed pretty poorly overall. But anyway, I said there's 4 parts to this episode. We're going to jump straight into that first part. We're going to design the chassis for the new SF18, and we'll see what sort of points we can get out of that. So here we are. We saved just under 15 million last season, so that's going to go straight into the bank account. We've now got just under 65 million. For the chassis design, you do have 4 areas: tyre wear, tyre heating. I never see any real point in tyre wear and tyre heating, because the sort of race that we run, we do sort of only run short races. Tyre wear, tyre heating are not that important. Tyre heating sometimes is important because you get to run in the optimum temperature, but since our car is so good at the moment, tyre heating doesn't really play a factor to us. And with a little bit of management, you can usually get it there or thereabouts, unless the track is really cold or the track is really hot, which at any point tyre heating wouldn't make that much of a difference anyway. Tyre wear, again, not that much of important. All of these 3, no, improvability done, because that works. Each star's worth plus 4 points to improvability. Tyre wear, tyre heating, fuel efficiency, they all work on the basis that if your stars are in the top 3 cars, then you get the performance boost. If you're in the middle 4 cars, then you don't get any boost at all. And if your car is one of the lower 3, you get a penalty for being in the bottom 3. So with tyre wear, if you're in the bottom 3, the tyres last for 1 lap less. If you're in the middle 4, then your tyres do the usual amount. If you're in the top 3, then you get +1 added onto those tyres. So it's not really that big of a difference. Tyre heating, again, that works on the similar principle of being in the top 3, middle 4, bottom 3. The top 3 would have a slight boost to the tyre heating, the bottom 3 would have a slight penalty to their tyre heating. The same goes for fuel efficiency. The ones in the top 3 get a slight boost. It's not that much of a boost, but it's enough that you can run in push mode for a little bit longer and recover enough fuel running in medium and low. Recover it a little bit quicker. So that is the fuel efficiency is the only one that I'm really bothered about. I don't want to be in the bottom 3, and I don't really want to be in the middle. I do like being able to push a little bit longer when we need to, although even in our Ferrari that is not much of a problem for us because we have been running most of the races in medium mode. But since we've got 2 comparable drivers this season, we're going to be letting them race. Fuel efficiency would possibly come in quite handy. So let's get straight into the engine supplier. We always have to go with Ferrari. Obviously Ferrari not that far behind the Mercedes engine this time, with a base stat modifier of +30. Mercedes-Benz with a +33 modifier, so it's not too bad there. and the Ferrari engine is a little bit stronger in fuel efficiency than Honda. Obviously we can't look at Renault, won't let us do that. We can't look at Mercedes. Toyota, there's not that much difference anyway. £8 million we're spending there, but that you get a plus 30 boost. But 50, if you were a low team, there's not much reason to go for this plus 30, because you could get this base stat modifier pretty easily by building 2 engine parts. Pretty much. This base stat modifier only applies to the engine, I think. I don't think this base stat modifier applies to any other part of the car. So if you were one of the lower teams, there wouldn't be much sense in spending 30 million extra just to gain not even really a quarter of a star, is it, to fuel efficiency? But because with Ferrari, we're going to have to go with Ferrari. I possibly would run that for any other team as well, basically try and save some money. Fuel supply, as I said, we're going to go for fuel efficiency here, so we're looking for the strongest one. Even though they also say very strong, they will all give a different performance bonus. So Petrobras would get us to 3 stars for £3 million. Total would get us to just under 4 stars for 6 million. Mobile 1 drops down to 3.5. Petronas, the same at 3.5. And Shell gets us up there, so that's where we would really want to be to get into the top 3, I think. So that is pretty much what we're going to spend. We're going to spend a little bit of money just to get that as good as possible. We're going to swap the rear package as far as high as we can just to get improvability up, because we're not bothered about tyre wear and tyre heating, and we usually get dilemmas through during the off season where we would be able to improve those as well. I'm not really bothered too much about what these say. Obviously we will be able to improve on this a little bit, but we're going to skimp out here. We're going to skimp out. Tyre wear, should we spend a little bit more? Should we? Let's not look at that. We're spending, if you want this to get up to very strong, you're spending £13 million for not even 2 stars. Really? No, it's not even. No, it's not even 2 stars. So we're going to skimp out on the brake suppliers, just like we did last season. So we're up to 2 stars, nearly 2 stars there. We're probably going to get it up to 3 stars on each of these through the dilemmas in the off season. So we spent 30 million there. So we're going to skimp out a little bit on those 2 areas of the car. They are not that important to me. They've never been important. We've managed to do everything we've done so far by skimping out on these 2 little parts of the car. It's worth it. We could spend here. We could spend an extra 6. Look at that, 6 million. It's not even making any difference at all. Very strong. We could improve that a star. We're paying £8.5 million there if you wanted to go with Microsoft Dynamics to get it up to 3.25 about. Whereas we might as well just wait for the dilemma to come through, which usually costs about £1.5 to £2 million for an extra star. So on the basis of a points gain to money spent, it's always better to go for American. Well, not, it won't always be this one, but always for the lowest cost one, and then hope that you get the dilemma through. If we don't get the dilemma through, it's not the end of the world, because I can deal with 2-star tyre heating, and if we do get the dilemma through and move it up to 3 stars, we will be in the middle for cars at that point. So that's how much we're going to spend. We're spending 30 million on the car here. We've got a lot of money left over that we can possibly build some new additions to the HQ. Do I actually want to do that at the moment? Yes, we might as well, hadn't we? Should we? I don't want to spend. We can't do this because we need some money left over, so we can go with the driver lineup that we want, so we can actually pay off Vettel to leave, so Charles Leclerc can come in. We don't need to work on the engine. The gearbox is not a particular problem for us. The rear wing is at the moment, as is the suspension. So we're going to build those 2 upgrades. So we need to upgrade the handling development center as well. And that's going to take £8 million off the budget. We've got 20 million left at the moment, so we might as well do one more development. Should we go for the front wings? We can't really see what's the weakest part anymore. Maybe we should wait till the season. No, we'll do it now. Telemetry center, gearbox. Should we work on the gearbox or the front wing? Driver feedback, driver consistency rate, overtaking improvement rate. What should we go for? Smoothness and consistency or driver feedback? Feedback's not important, so we'll go for the telemetry center as well. So we're going to build 3 new HQ parts in the off season. That's pretty decent. If we come here now, we can actually go ahead and improve some parts. We can improve the. We're just only going to improve the reliability at this point in the season. We're actually going to work on the gearbox because we don't actually have the best gearbox at the moment. I wonder who has the best gearbox. I wonder if Red Bull have overtaken us in that category. So we're going to work on the gearbox here. We're going to get that up to scratch. Hopefully that 20 points is going to give us the best gearbox now. That is where we're at drivers, even with Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, we've got the 5th overall best drivers, so obviously that's going to drop down quite a little bit once we put Charles Leclerc in that seat, but we do still have the best car, so it might be a little bit tricky this season with Schumacher and Charles Leclerc as the number 1 and number 2 drivers. But that's where we're going to leave it. We've got to move ahead now onto the livery edit, so we'll be back in a minute and we'll go through what we're doing with the Ferrari design for 2018. Right, so this is a new car for 2018. We've kept it pretty simple again. We've gone with the basic red and with the black wings. We've added a little bit of white onto the skirts down at the bottom, so that's what we're going to go with this season. I think it looks pretty good, and we've also gone with the classic Ferrari yellow for all of the sponsors. I actually quite like this design. There wasn't many others that I was liking the look of. Ones that I've downloaded off the workshop, but this is the one that we're going to go for. It's got a nice classic numbering on the front. The yellow sponsor, I do really like this one, so that's what we're going to confirm. Yes, we'll confirm that one. So I'm pretty happy with that livery edit there. I'm actually pretty happy with that one. So we're just waiting for the chassis to finish building. There's not that much time to go. I think it finishes around March sometime, so we'll skip ahead to that, then we'll jump straight into the driver market. We'll see what sort of craziness has happened with the teams. We've obviously confirmed our driver lineup now with Mick Schumacher and Charles Leclerc, and we've got Guan Yu Zhou as a reserve driver. Obviously we've kept everything within the Ferrari Driver Academy family, so everyone here is associated with Ferrari. Mick Schumacher's not associated with Ferrari quite yet, but I'm guessing he will end up in the driver program with Ferrari as well, so it's got a nice young Ferrari family feel to it here. Schumacher, Leclerc, Zhou, a nice team. Zhou's not actually rated too good here. He didn't have the best season with Motorpark last season in, was it GP3? Yeah, it was, I think. Is he still with Motorpark this season? I'm not sure. I haven't even looked into GP3 this season. But anyway, we're going to go ahead now, skip ahead, and then we'll come back with the driver market in just a second. So here we go with the final driver lineups for the 2018 season. We kick things off with Mercedes before we get into this weird little lineup that we've got here. Obviously Ferrari, we've got the best car. Red Bull's still second. Mercedes still struggling in third. They are a long way behind us. Obviously this being right at the top would represent being the best car overall. That's where we're at. Red Bull second, Mercedes third, Williams in fourth, Force India fifth, Toro Rosso sixth, McLaren seventh, still lagging behind, Manor eighth, the new team of Racing Engineering in ninth, just above Renault, who have slipped right to the back of the grid. So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of driver lineup they can get. Otherwise it's going to be a really hard season for Renault. But I'm guessing that Racing Engineering have the worst driver lineup overall, because I'm guessing they're possibly stuck with Norman Nato and Jack Aitken. I haven't looked ahead at what the other teams have done, so I'm not quite sure what's going to go with what. I'm not going to hover over the driver bar because that would give us an indication of who's sort of gone where, because it would rank the teams by their driver stats. But anyway, as we look at Mercedes here, it looks pretty strange. They've got Daniel Juncadella as well, he will be the number 2 driver. It's got Sebastian Vettel down here, but that's just the way the computers assign people to the relative seats. Obviously Lewis Hamilton's left, Carlos Sainz has left, and Artem Markelov, who was a reserve driver last season, has left. Daniel Juncadella has replaced Lewis Hamilton. I'm not sure what his rating is in the game, but we've started scouting him. I wouldn't expect him to be more than 3 stars. Obviously, what was he doing last year? He was in the GT. Yeah, he was a GT driver last season, wasn't he? And he tested with, I think he's tested with Force India. I don't think he's had any other F1 experience other than testing with Force India. How long ago was that? 2013? I don't know. But then we've got Lucas, I can't remember how to pronounce that. Lucas Ayer. Anyway, yeah, what's he in? What does he do? Does he do touring car? I think he's done Formula 3 a little bit. But anyway, it's quite a weird lineup here. Mercedes have also gone with James Allison as lead designer. He's making a debut. It was Racing Engineering last season, so Racing Engineering have lost James Allison as lead designer. Whether he was a big part in them getting the car up to scratch that they managed to beat Art last year, who were the favourites with Button and having the best car. Anyway, he's made up the step up to Mercedes, so I wonder if Paddy Lowe's gone anywhere else. We're going to move on to Red Bull. They've got could be the best driver lineup. Williams ended last season with the best driver lineup with Rosberg and Valtteri Bottas. But anyway, Red Bull have kept pretty much the same. They've still got Adrian Newey as the lead designer. Christian Horner's still very secure there. Toto Wolff is at risk still. But anyway, they've kept the same lineup with Ricciardo, Verstappen and Buemi in the reserve seat. So we'll move on now to Williams. And yes, Williams still do have the best driver lineup, although their car's rated quite far down. But that's 4th, and that's how far they are behind us, all the way down here. But Williams have kept the same driver lineup as well. Valtteri Bottas, Nico Rosberg and Paul Di Resta as the reserve. Simmons still there. He's been with Williams for quite a while. Managed to pick up 1 podium last season, did Williams. Who was that with? Rosberg managed to pick up the podium last season. What did Red Bull do last season? 12 podiums overall. That shows Mercedes only got 4 podiums, I would think. Maybe 5, because we had one race where Vettel crashed out. Then we'll come on to us. Here we are with the best car overall, all the way at the top. The driver lineup is rated about middle of the grid. Obviously, both our drivers are going to show some rapid improvements over the season. I think they both do have the Wonder Kid. No. Charles Leclerc doesn't actually have the Wonder Kid stat. I'm sure Mick Schumacher even has a Wonder Kid stat, yeah. So Schumacher's possibly going to improve at a faster rate than Charles Leclerc is doing. And that's our lineup for this season. Mick Schumacher, Charles Leclerc, and then Guanyu Zhou as the reserve driver. We've obviously got Ross Brawn as lead designer. Moving on, it should be McLaren next. McLaren. And that is where Lewis Hamilton has ended up. He's actually got back to 5 stars this time, so I wonder if he had a driver trait in there. That he's got the refocus stat, that's why. So he's got 15 weeks where he's possibly going to be the best driver overall in the competition. Although he's in this underwhelming McLaren car, that is obviously going to help McLaren in their aim of staying up. Their number 2 driver is Louis Delatraz. He was the reserve driver last season, I seem to remember. He's obviously swapped places with Rafael Marciello. So Marciello had a really disappointing last season. Obviously, McLaren car is really slow. Delatraz is going to have the same problems, I would think, as Delatraz is possibly the worst driver in the series now in Formula 1, depending on what Daniel Juncadell's stats are like. I don't think there's going to be anyone else quite as low rated as that, unless Norman Nato and Jack Aitken in the racing engineering are rated that low. But next we have Force India, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen and Jerome D'Ambrosio. They've kept the same lineup totally as well, so we'll go ahead and skip past them. Their car is rated 5th. Toro Rosso, John Palmer, Roman Grosjean and Richard Verschoor. That's the same lineup as last season. Moving on, who's next? I think it would be Renault. Yep, Renault have got Marcus Ericsson, Fernando Alonso and Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen has been knocked down to the reserve driver. Kevin Magnussen was the number 1 driver last season with Carmen Jorda as the number 2. Marcus Ericsson was the reserve driver last season. So Ericsson and Magnussen have swapped places, and Renault have brought Fernando Alonso into the team. So Alonso reuniting with the team that brought him his 2 world championships. Was it 2005 and 2006? But anyway, he's not going to have that same sort of success here, because as we've seen, Renault do have the worst car overall. So he's gone from a really underwhelming McLaren car to an even more underwhelming Renault car. They still have Bob Bell as lead designer. Yeah, there's going to be no chance. It's possibly even going to struggle to score a point this season is Fernando Alonso. Last season, he didn't really manage anything in the McLaren. So it's going to be interesting to see whether he can get anything out of this really poor Renault car. Next we have Sauber, who are in GP2 at the moment. They've gone with Esteban Ocon and Pedro Piquet. That's a change from last season, isn't it? Because they had Jean-Eric Vergne, our own reserve driver, and Felipe Nasr, so I'm not sure where they've ended up. But anyway, that's quite a strong lineup there, although it doesn't say it's quite the highest, so I'm guessing Pedro Piquet is rated pretty low. I would expect him to be a little bit higher. And then we've got Haas, who obviously last season were relegated as well. They're now in GP2, and they've managed to hold on to Danny Kvyat and Esteban Gutierrez. Obviously, they don't have the best driver lineup either in GP2. Where would that put them? 4th, and Sauber are 3rd, Prima 2nd. Art still have the number 1 driver lineup, so I'm guessing they've retained Jenson Button in their seat. And then we go with Racing Engineering. Jack Aitken, Norman Nato still there. Norman Nato, the GP2 champion last season. I think he was, yes he was. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. They've actually got the worst rated driver lineup, it looks like. I'm not sure what Jack Aitken. I can't remember what Jack Aitken's stats are. Well, I haven't seen what his stats are. Nominator 2 and a bit, so he's just rated a little bit under that of what Louis Delatraz is rated. So Delatraz is not the overall worst rated driver in Formula 1. So I'm guessing Racing Engineering are going to have a real struggling season this season. It's going to be, I think it's going to be them being demoted back to GP2. Manor, meanwhile, and that's where Jean-Eric Vergne has ended up making the move from Sauber back into Formula 1. Pascal Wehrlein retains his #1 seat with Manor Racing. So they've got a pretty decent driver lineup there. The car is not the best, it's slightly better than Racing Engineering, but they're at a point where they could be challenging... No, they can't challenge McLaren because McLaren have got Lewis Hamilton, haven't they? But it's possibly going to be enough to keep them up, isn't it? Because it's going to be between Racing Engineering and Renault. It just depends how much Fernando Alonso can get out of that Renault car. Then we move on to Art, who still retain the best car in GP2, and they still retain the best drivers, and they have got Carlos Sainz in the car with Jenson Button, so that's a pretty strong driver lineup for GP2. That's actually better than the driver lineup that we've got, because both our drivers are rated about the same as Jenson Button. So that is a pretty strong lineup for GP2, and it's going to be pretty hard to see how anyone is going to be able to beat Art. But then saying that, Prima have a pretty strong lineup as well with Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll. So pretty surprising to see Sergio Perez to making the drop to GP2. I thought he would have taken one of the open seats at like McLaren. Obviously they've gone with the lower rated driver in Delatraz. It's surprising to see him drop this far. Although it is a pretty strong Prima team. They kept them strong at the end of last season. Obviously their car is not rated the best this season because they've got Sauber and Haas between them and Art GP. They do have the second best driver lineup, but it's going to be hard to see anyone beating Art this season with Button and Carlos Sainz in the car. And then we'll just have a look at the next highest rated team, which is Russian Time. They've obviously got Stoffel Van Dorn, who was pretty underwhelming last season in GP2. Didn't get a podium or a win, even though the Russian Time car is usually pretty strong. Although it's dropped further down the order this time, so Russian Time really struggling with their car. They've been overtaken by Dams now. They do have the 6 overall best car, so it's going to be quite a struggle for them. And Felipe Massa is degrading as time goes on, so that's why their driver lineup is rated as low as that. So I wonder where Antonio Giovinazzi has ended up. He did pretty well last season as the Prima came strong. Trident have got Luca Giotto, Dams, Alexander Lane. Artem Markov has ended up at Campos. Assery lost his reserve seat at Mercedes. Rapax, Ollie Rowland at MP Motorsport. I can't even see him anywhere. Nick De Vries has moved from Art to Arden. And there we go. Antonio Giovinazzi has actually dropped to GP3 here. They've actually got the best drivers now, have Muck. The car is pretty weak though, so it's going to be interesting to see what Giovinazzi can do in this series. But yeah, so the driver market pretty much shook up there with quite a few moves, with Lewis Hamilton moving down to McLaren. It's going to be interesting to see what he can get out of that McLaren car. I don't think he's going to be able to get much more out of it than what Fernando Alonso has been able to do. I'm pretty surprised. They possibly would have had a really strong driver lineup if they managed to hold on to Alonso and put Lewis Hamilton in the car as well. That would have been a nice lineup for McLaren. Obviously that is not going to happen. Toro Rosso still remaining pretty strong. Force India pretty strong now with the third best driver lineup. So Red Bull are going to be the big challenge for us this season. Mercedes, I would say they would be strong, but with Junker Della in the car having a drive this season, it's going to be pretty hard for them to keep up with the constructors. Whereas Sebastian Vettel might be the main challenge for us winning a drivers' championship. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Mick Schumacher or Charles Leclerc can keep up with Vettel. That is what the main thing is going to be this season. But anyway, that's where we're at. We've still got the HQ parts building now. We can jump in to pre-season testing. We can't actually even the cars up here because one car is going to be a lot better than the other one at this point of the season. So we'll jump straight into pre-season testing. So there we go. We're at the top at the moment. Charles Leclerc falling down the order, but that's because he's got the car that is not as good as the other one. So we would be seeing both of these. Well, Schumacher's time would degrade a little bit. Charles Leclerc's would improve as we sort of try and even up the cars. But there we go. Schumacher quickest by nearly 3 seconds. We had an average speed of 108 to the next best car of Daniel Ricciardo at 105, and we had a top speed better than any other car as well. So that's a crazy time, isn't it? Almost 3 seconds ahead. So that's going to bode well when we even the cars up. It's going to make things a little bit tighter at the top. So that's going to be nice and interesting heading into this 2018 season. So we're just going to quickly look at the car. Mail Ferrari lead the way in pre-season testing. Targets the 2018 season. We're going to go first with that. So if we look at the car, we're best in every category again. It looks like we are working on some of the parts. What we're going to do, just to even things up, we need to build a new engine to get these tied up a little bit more. There's nothing else this season with a massive gap between them other than the engine, so we're going to get this engine built first. We can add a +20 on, we can get to a 1545 and upgrade that to a 1563. It's going to cost us £1.5 million. We've got tons of money left over. The chassis, meanwhile, we only got a dilemma through for tyre wear and improvability, so we managed to improve a star here and we managed to improve a star here. Not the best overall there, but yeah, I'm not too bothered about that. So we need... He's going to complain because he's got equal status at the moment, while Mick is still a reserve driver. I wonder if he'll renew his contract right now. He will do. His wages are fairly important to him, so we might need to offer him a little bit more than what he was on last season. We want him as an equal status driver. He wants medium contract, and bonus size isn't important for qualifying, but he does want a bonus for race. We're only going to give him a bonus for finishing first, and we'll offer him 84,000, so we'll be able to see whether that's accepted by the time the next race rolls around. As it is at the moment, we're making 2.4 million. We'll just skip ahead a little bit. Let's just see if Mick signs here. Let's just see if we can get him to sign. Oh, he wants to renegotiate. Don't you dare turn us down, Mickey. Not too happy with that. We'll bump him up there a little bit. We'll bump him up to there. What does he want? He might even want more than that, might he? No. Don't turn us down, Mick. We're going to have to offer him big money out, because he can go up to 844, and since he's saying it's important to him, I'm going to have to pay him quite a bit more. And we're not going to hear back from that anyway till afterwards. So we're getting 2.4 for the race. We do have the sponsor with 1.7. So at the moment, after the first race, we should be making £4.1 million if we win the race, which is a massive amount of money. So that is where we're going to leave things this episode. We do have the first 2 races of the season coming up in the next episode, with Mick Schumacher and Charles Leclerc taking the reign of these prancing horses. We have the best car. We should be able to win, although it's going to be interesting to see what Sebastian Vettel can do in his Mercedes, and whether the Red Bull have improved their car enough to be able to keep up with us with Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen in the seat. We're going to be able to see what Fernando Alonso can do in his return to Renault. We also have Lewis Hamilton returning to McLaren. We're going to be able to see whether he can score points in that pretty poor McLaren car. And that is where we're leaving things. So we will be back with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which obviously still has a wrong flag. It's pretty much a wrong track as well. And we've got the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, so they're going to be the first 2 races. Are we going to have any rain? It's going to be a full wet race at Suzuka. It's going to be all dry in Abu Dhabi, so that's what we're going to be coming back for next time. So if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below. You will be updated, hopefully, depending on how YouTube works, when I post the next episode. Like this video if you are interested in this challenge this season with Schumacher and Charles Leclerc, 2 young drivers in this Ferrari car. And leave any comments down below. Did we make a mistake getting rid of Vettel? Does it make this series a little bit more interesting having Vettel in a different car now, whereas we have not too much downgraded the drivers, but they will be making improvements as the season goes on. But anyway, until next time, I will see you down the road, and goodbye.